The Halli Casser-Jayne Show airs Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern. The podcast's always available online at HalliCasser-Jayne.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ivanka Trump.
Welcome, everybody. Today, I have the honor of introducing a man who needs no introduction. His legend has been built, and his accomplishments are too many to name. That man is my father, Donald J. Trump.
June 16th, 2015. A day that will be remembered in infamy. When Donald J. Trump announced his bid for the presidency, and politics as America knew it would be changed forever. Businessman, charlatan, brilliant, a fraud, the next coming of Hitler, Trump has been called it all. Today on the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a look at Donald Trump and all the candidates vying for the highest office in the land on both sides of the aisle, with my guest, senior editor from the Federalist, David Harsanyi, and Newsweek's political editor, Matthew Cooper. Hi, and welcome. I am your host, Halli Casser-Jayne. But before we begin, the Halli Casser-Jayne Show is brought to you by Audible.com, a leading provider of spoken audio information and entertainment. Get a free audiobook and 30-day trial today by visiting my website at HalliCasser-Jayne.com and clicking on the Audible.com icon for your free book. Hey, what's more fun than a free book? And remember, the Halli Casser-Jayne Show is always available online at HalliCasser-Jayne.com and a host of venues including Stitcher.com, Spreaker.com, TuneIn Radio, iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, and on the iHeart Radio Network. Besides being a senior editor at the Federalist, David Harsanyi is a nationally syndicated columnist and author of 3 books, including The People Have Spoken and They Are Wrong, The Case Against Democracy, and one of my favorite titles ever, Nanny State, How Food, Fascists, Teetotaling Do-Gooders, Priggish Moralists, and other boneheaded bureaucrats are turning America into a nation of children. He is a former editor of Human Events and opinion columnist at the Denver Post. He left his position writing op-eds for the Denver Post to work for Glenn Beck's website, The Blaze. His work has appeared in the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Weekly Standard, National Review, Reason, New York Post, and numerous other publications. David has appeared on Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, NPR, ABC World News Tonight, NBC Nightly News, and dozens of radio talk shows across the country. He describes himself as a libertarian and an atheist. Let's talk. Okay, David Harsanyi. Great name, by the way. Recently, you were quoted as saying, I think, and I couldn't definitely track this down to you, but I did see it somewhere. Let's apply it to the election 2016 and the rise of Donald Trump as the front runner for the GOP. Well, just maybe to conservatives, the principle is worth more than the victory. You said that?
It sounds like something I might say.
I think you said that. So you're in line with the new push to push Trump out at any cost, even if it means losing the election? And I don't know whether those two correlate, but let's go there.
They do correlate, but at this point, I think that Republicans are going to lose the election in some way, no matter what happens. So if Donald Trump wins the primary, I think there'll be a bunch of people who are just as principled as the people who don't want to vote for Jeb or Rubio or, the establishment that won't vote for someone like Trump. And I think that's going to undermine his candidacy. I suspect they would run a third-party candidate, maybe. And then, obviously, the people who do support Trump are going to be mad, the establishment's going to be mad, and these conservatives will be mad. There'll be a crack-up. If Trump is pushed out at this point, I am certain that people who support Trump, especially his hardcore fans, will feel like they've been cheated out of something. And maybe in a sense they will be. So there'll be a crack up there. But for me, yes, I don't think a Trump presidency is worth it. I think gridlock is preferable to me than having someone making the kind of deals, and I take him at his word that he says he's going to make when he gets to Washington. I find that a worse situation than what we have now in a way.
Well, that's interesting. I'm flummoxed by the whole entire election season, and I know I'm not alone. I mean, what happened? How the heck did so many on the right miss the intensity of the furor against the establishment? That's incredulous to me. Isn't it to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things happening at once. So certainly the establishment deserves the blame, not only because they don't achieve things that conservatives want, which I actually think that they don't sometimes get enough credit. I know maybe you disagree and you'll push back on that, but more that they make promises that they can't keep. Now, if you cannot overturn Obamacare, don't say you're going to do it. You cannot do it with Obama as president. So let's stop pretending. You have to be more realistic with people. You get their expectations up. You break your promises, and then it doesn't happen. But, there are plenty of things they could have fought harder on. They didn't as well. So that's one thing. I think the establishment for sure is partly at fault for this. I think that Obama and the way he's treated the presidency is somewhat at fault for this. I think people on the right want their own Obama in a way, someone who's going to use executive power to get what he wants. And obviously just the sort of economic anxiety that's going on, I think has a lot to do with it as well. So I think all those three things and probably another 100 have something to do with it.
Well, I think everything that you say is absolutely fair, but let's talk about principle for a minute, David. Isn't standing on principle the very reason the situation is what it is? I mean, isn't the base of the Republican Party screaming to the establishment, screw principle? I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. There are things that need to get done, and you guys are simply stuck on the principle. So you've gotten little done. You take care of your own interest. Somebody come to the rescue and fix this. Is this not like screaming from these people?
Absolutely. I think that's what they're saying. And I am sympathetic to that instinct. I actually wish someone would blow up the Republican Party. I just don't think this is the guy that I want doing it. Principle. I mean, for me, for instance, the principle for me is the process. It's the Constitution. It's separation of powers. It's the way government abuses its power when it comes to individual rights. Nothing Donald Trump says makes me feel good about his presidency on that level. Now, maybe he'll build a wall, and basically maybe he'll deport all the illegal immigrants. And if that is the issue, then maybe he's for you. And that is important for me to follow the rule of law and to deal with those things, but I have many other issues that are important to me. I don't think the establishment has stood on principle, and that's why they didn't get things done. I think they didn't get things done. A, sometimes they're cowardly about it. B, sometimes they just don't know how. They're not talented enough to do it. And C, they just don't have the means to do it. And I think that all adds up.
So that's an interesting statement, and I'm curious about that, because what does that mean? Is it the electorate are voting in people who are dumb, who are incompetent, maybe that's the problem. Maybe it really starts with who we're electing into these offices to represent the party.
In some sense, I think that's true, though. I think since the Tea Party broke out, things have gotten a lot better if you care about constitutional principles. If you think about what the Senate looked like before 2010 and what it looks like now, there was no Mike Lee, Ted Cruz, even Marco Rubio, people are mad at now. It's changed the complexion of the Senate in a way that's actually, when you look at it historically, pretty incredible. But and what was the question again? I'm going off on a tangent.
No. You're on the tangent. I'm simply saying to you that I think that maybe the electorate has a problem too, because they're not well educated, they're not paying attention, they're being thrown, because of gerrymandering. Maybe people they don't really want to vote for. I don't know. There are 1,000 reasons you can say it, but they're the voters. And these people who are in office are there not because they got there because they got there. They got there because they were voted in by certain people. I mean, there's that argument. I am not
one to shy away from saying I think the electorate has no idea what it's doing. And I mean that they're great probably in the things that they do in their own lives, and they understand the world from their own perspectives. But when it comes to politics, they sort of drop everything they're doing and make choices they would never make in real life. They elect people they wouldn't even let probably babysit their kids. I believe that that's true. I believe that they get emotional and they make emotional decisions. But you also have to look at it in a different sense. So let's say, I forget what the number is now, but Congress is at like 5% favorability, maybe 9%, something like that.
Yeah.
but everyone loves their own congressperson. Everyone loves their own congressman. They constantly get reelected. They hate Congress as an institution as a whole because they feel either that it's not doing what it should be or it's doing too much. That's how I feel sometimes. So I think that it's a theoretical that they hate what's going on, but what they really mean is they hate that other people are out there in Congress who aren't doing what they want. But yeah, I never get this where we're always bragging on politicians, but who puts them there? We put them there. Right. We vote on them. Right. It's not, and often it's not like we have any better choice. I mean, it's not like, we have some great person who isn't getting in. It's typically just that we put too much hope and promise into them. So this cult of personality around Obama or Trump or whoever it is, it's A, always dangerous in a way, and B, always disappointing to the voter. It will always be disappointing. No one ever leaves office with everyone going, wow, that was a great 8 years. Everything worked out for us so well. I wish I could vote for him again. Typically, we're angry at them and we're sick of them and we want something new.
For sure. There was just announced that there was a secret meeting this weekend, about that. A bunch of people went off to some island somewhere. Rove was there, I guess the guy from Apple, blah, 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 all trying to, the story, trying to figure out how they were going to get rid of Trump. Let me talk about this just for a second, because to thwart the will of the voters, and there are an awful lot of them who are voting for Trump, clearly, right?
Yeah.
To me, that's just utterly bizarre and also feeding into part of what their argument is that you're the big guys, we're the little guys, and you're not taking care of it. They're treating them like ninnies. I haven't used that word, David, in 100,000 years, but they're treating them like, where'd that word just come from? They're treating them like ninnies. They don't have any sense. We're going to tell them what's better. We're going to be the party establishment, and we're going to take away what their desire is. That
right.
is kind of scary.
It is, yes. Now, let me push back on that, too.
Go for it.
I agree. How you just laid it out is exactly what it's going to look like, and it's exactly what they're doing in a way. And typically, I think it's awful that they do that. But I'm not a huge fan of democracy in a way, and parties can figure out who they want to elect. Now, if Donald Trump wins enough delegates to be the nominee, he's going to be the nominee because you can't retroactively change the system. If he doesn't have enough delegates going into the convention, it would not be stealing from him to take it from him, because then it's a free-for-all. That's what an open brokered convention is all about. You all come in even. And I think that, if they did that, I think people would feel the way that you just laid out anyway. But I don't think it's the same case as him winning it and having it stolen from him.
So if he's just shy of the number, that's still, as long as he doesn't get to that whatever number it is, period, end of conversation, they can go and they can do what they want to do. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, they're not going to do what they want to do. It's going to be a big fight in the convention floor. It's not like Ted Cruz is going to go, okay, Marco Rubio or Mitt Romney, you be president, or vice versa. There'd be a huge fight. But the majority of people, even today, don't support Trump. You know what I'm saying? So they haven't had a unity candidate. Now, I am not one who, like others, who thinks that just because Ted Cruz drops out, all those voters are going to, rationally, as the establishment wants, move over to the next candidate, which is Marco Rubio or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
Yeah. Here's something else. I've not heard this. And let's talk Trump a little bit more. I think there's a disconnect here. I know a lot of people who know this guy, who know his kids. The Donald Trump that is standing up there on that stage and carrying on like a complete lunatic half the time, that ain't the guy that I know my friends know. It really is an odd thing. Did everybody who knew Donald Trump in New York and in Palm Beach, all of them got this guy wrong and he's really, the next coming of Hitler? It's kind of an odd deal. Is this just not theater? Is this just not the way, starting with earlier than Obama? But let's just say the master of it was Obama. Come on. Nobody wants to go there, but the fact of the matter is, remember those backdrops? Remember that hype? Come on.
It definitely reminds me of it. The cult of personality.
Yeah.
And I was born and grew up a little bit near where Donald Trump's from in Queens, but I never ever, I didn't know his kids. I'm not in the same circle or anything like that. But I can say this. I think, of course, it's theater to some extent. He changes his positions a lot, which just, to me, intimates, that he's saying what he thinks people want to hear. And I don't like the Hitler comparison. I think it's dumb.
It's awful.
Not that you made it, but have people.
No, I find it insulting to Jews.
Right.
And to all of us. I'm Jewish, but to all of us. I just find it bizarre and out of whack.
Yeah, it degrades what Hitler was about.
Exactly.
And if we had a strong constitutional system, we wouldn't have to worry about strong presidents in that way anyway. But it's the Democrats, mostly, who degraded that process itself. So now we have to worry more. But he's not like Hitler. He's sort of more like Teddy Roosevelt or something, or FDR. And that worries me as well. But he's not Hitler. And when people say that, I get very annoyed. He tells everyone to raise their hand or whatever, and all of a sudden they're giving Heil Hitler salutes. It's ridiculous.
Right. So, do you remember a time, David, when you couldn't do that? You couldn't go down that Hitler thing? It wasn't okay. Do you remember that? Not too long ago, I think somebody, it might have been Obama, somebody did something recently and everybody went wacko. Don't you dare go down that. But with this, they're going there, and I think that that's wrong. I have a theory about Trump. Trump knew what he was going to do. He saw an opening in the Republican Party, and he said, this is it. I can't move on Hillary, but I can move on the Republican Party. And what I can do is I can't run as an independent because I don't care if you have $12 zillion, you're not going to win. So maybe I go into the Republican Party, and what I do is I move into it as an independent, really. I'm not left, I'm not right. I'm really going to be an independent. I'm going to pull the party to the center. We need an independent party. The Republican places where we could rebuild it and move it from the right, and maybe that's what he's been up to, which is why what he throws out is an idea for everyone, because he truly is trying to get that center. You thought about that?
I think that sounds plausible to me. I think that's right in a way. Problem with him, if that's true, is that he will not start a movement other than within himself, in the sense that he's not like he's going to recruit other Trump kind of candidates. It's not like he's going to build a think tank to come up with policy. It's not like, a movement is more than one person after that person's gone. So I don't know how it works out after. But I agree with you, and that's what scares me. I think that the conservatives, even though they have often not upheld these values, are about a certain set of things that came from Goldwater through Reagan and so forth. Now, maybe those ideas have exhausted themselves, and maybe people don't care about those ideas that much. And I think that that's probably true. But they do matter to me, and I think they matter to a bunch of conservatives still. So for them, having Trump do what you just mentioned is essentially hollowing out their party from within. And it's more dangerous to them than having an enemy that's a common enemy like Hillary or whoever that they can fight in Washington than having to fight their own party all the time. So I think that's what people who are conservative, who are movement conservatives, are nervous about Donald Trump more than they are about a Democrat being president.
Well, I think they figured that out, but I think they figured it out too late, and they're not naming it either, which I think might be helpful. I'm with you on conservative values, and here's the deal. We are such a changing world. We are such a changing nation, and I think conservative values have gotten a bad name, and I blame it on conservatism. I blame it on the fact that we've gotten too hung up on gods and guns and abortion. Forgive me. I'm not saying because I don't think those aren't important values to, play. But I think when you get there, you've not dealt with other issues that I think are more basic to the needs of the people so that those other things come in line. We've given up our values. We've given up our values to hype.
Well, I think part of the problem is that the we is loosely knit, right?
Well, I get that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we all have different things and I sort of agree with you on what you just said. I mean, I think like abortion, for instance, for a lot of people, it's just not the top issue. They just don't care enough, even if they're sort of pro-life. But for other people, though, it is the most important issue. And if a candidate isn't strong enough on that issue, then they're not going to come out and vote. So it's very difficult to cobble together this coalition on the right, which I think is actually what in this country we have three parties. You have Democrats and you have sort of movement conservatives and then just regular kind of mainline Republicans who care about economic issues and so forth. So it's hard to keep it together. And I think Donald Trump actually has shown how hard it is to keep it together. A lot of people are more concerned about immigration issues, about protectionism, which actually scares me a lot as well, and not that concerned about all this idealistic talk about free markets and yada, yada either. So it gets very difficult to pull it all together. Whereas on the left, they basically agree on almost every issue. It's just to what extent they want to push it.
Yeah, and it wasn't always that way either. You can remember, 68, things were kind of where you guys are, if you will. It was the same blow-up. And maybe blow-ups have to happen every 50 years or so in order to get people to pay better attention or make the changes that need to change. Look, society is changing so quickly right now, it's scary. And I think a lot of what we're seeing here and what Trump took advantage of is the fact that society is changing, and he saw a hole and he said, aha, I can move right in there. I don't buy half of what he says, only in the respect that I think he does have his own values, and I do think, he is probably freaked out about trade and blah, 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 blah. That's about the only place I probably believe him. But on the rest of it, when he comes forward, he does morph from the beginning of a debate to the end of a debate. You don't know what you're getting. Why is he so scary to conservatives, knowing maybe he's more pliable, maybe he can be worked better, maybe he can be controlled better by the party if he were in. I'm just asking. I don't know if it's true or not.
Well, I'm sort of a strongly libertarian kind of person.
I know.
So for me, ideology is actually kind of important because it gives me an idea of what your belief system is. So I know what you're going to sort of do. Now, maybe you'll compromise to get things done or not. When a person has absolutely no ideology, I mean, Trump is about whatever Trump thinks that minute. It could change. Maybe someone can convince him. I don't know if he's pliable or not. I mean, I don't know how it works a bit behind the scenes. I'm sure you're right about that. That scares me because I feel like when he gets in, he is going to make deals. He's going to, for instance, pass protectionist policies. He's going to get a bunch of Democrats who like that kind of idea, progressives. He's going to get a bunch of Republicans who like it. He's going to pass stuff that I think would be harmful. But I don't know what he's going to do. That's one of the things that scares me. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. But I do know something that he does, that he insults lots of people who are going to want, you're going to want to have vote for you in the future. And I don't like the language he uses. I think it's ugly in a way. And I'm not one of these people who needs politicians to always say the nice things. I think he can be honest. But how he talks about immigration and stuff like that, I think it's ugly in a way it doesn't need to be, even if I thought he were right. And all of those things sort of scare me. But mostly it scares me that he talks about government like a liberal does. He is telling you, here's what we're going to take care of you. He says that all the time. And that's not what government in America is supposed to be about, even though most people, I guess, today accept that that's what government's about. So I don't know. I guess maybe I'll just be a small minority in this world.
No, but I don't think you are. I don't think you are a small minority, and I think that you speak for a lot of people, a lot of conservatives / all the other isms that one might put to themselves these days. But here's the deal. Basically what you're saying, this guy can't be controlled. We don't really know what the hell is going to come out of his mouth next. That's what's the most scary of all. But I tend to think that he actually does have, they may not be my values, they may not be yours, but I do think he has a certain set of criteria of things that he wants to get done. But more importantly, David, I think the thing is he is speaking to people who clearly want him to be in that authoritarian position. They're clamoring, maybe because of Obama, for somebody who was going to be strong and virile and, that 1950s kind of James, I'm thinking about all those actors, the Kirk Douglases. I mean, there was a whole New York, Hollywood kind of tough guy, their character, as you sit there and you stand up straight, it could be you, right? I mean, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, that appeals to a lot of people. And I want to bring this up too. Let me put a comment and then add this because I'm throwing this at you. Rubio tried to be Trump. He couldn't pull it off. Part of the reason he couldn't pull it off is because he doesn't do it very well, because he smiles every time he thinks he's cracked a joke like a kid on a schoolyard. It doesn't work for me. It didn't work for me. But he isn't Trump. And when Trump says something so silly and so macho, the Robert Mitchum kind of character that he can be at times with finesse. Robert Mitchum with finesse. There you go. You can use that. But if that's who he's coming off as, he does it well, and you almost think he's winking when he says it versus anybody else. Certainly Ted Cruz, who can't get away with that. Talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, he's the only guy who gets away with it, and the others took a long time to try to deal with it. I think Ted Cruz does a really awesome job as like sort of the prosecutor when he's talking about policy or something, but I'm not sure people care. That's the truth. And Rubio, I thought he did an okay job, but you're right. He's always smiling. He looks like a kid. It almost makes him look younger than he is when he does it. Yeah. I don't think that helps him. Yeah. The problem is this is so atypical for a political debate. Nothing like this has probably ever happened in a major political debate where someone's talking about their hands and so on and calling people, names. It's bizarre.
Nuts. It's bizarre.
Go on.
I said it's bizarre. It's utterly bizarre. But you got to, let me just throw this in. I'm sorry. Go.
This is the greatest thing that's ever happened, right? Because it's just so amazing to cover and write about. And the other side of me says this is the worst thing. We're destroying the little shred of dignity that was left in politics. So anyway, but I think you laid it out right. But he's not really a tough guy. He grew up rich. I mean, I don't get why people actually think he is a tough guy. Maybe he can play the role well. It's just weird to me that the billionaire who grew up rich, who has always been really rich, is the champion of the working class, not a working class person who's actually sort of lifted himself out of that. But who knows? I mean, this is the weirdest year, and I just don't get people anymore.
Well,
that's basically what it comes down to.
I get that, but you can be rich and you can be a tough guy. Believe me, I went to all these private schools with all these guys, and I know exactly how they play it. And if they're from New York, they really, really like to play it. He's putting that out there too. I mean, I think he's so contrived that he doesn't want to appear. I mean, look at his wife, look at his daughter, look at his sons. And then, and even look at him with his $2,000 million, Bulgaria, whatever, ring on his finger, this kind of thing. And then he's talking to the little guy, and I'm saying him, and he pulls it off because he knows how to give them what they want to hear. I want to talk about Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz has a radio face. You know what a radio face is?
I have a radio face.
You do not. You're cute. I'm looking at you right now. He does not. He has a radio face. I don't care what he says. That guy, my grandmother would say that punum on that face. Oy. I mean, he just, even if he's smiling and he's telling a funny joke, he just doesn't pull it off because of that face. And I know that's small-minded, but that is the reality. And I keep thinking about 4 to 8 years of that face. And I think Richard Nixon, and I start to break out in a sweat, and I say, I don't know if I can handle it. Why can't they get him to lighten up the face?
I mean, people try to mold these candidates as they did with Al Gore when they've had him wearing a sweater and French kissing his wife on stage and stuff. But, in the end, you have a personality. It's very hard to try to be someone else, no matter who you are. So someone tweeted, and I forgot who it was. I wish I could remember, but they said that Ted Cruz looks sort of like the super evil genius that they let out of jail to fight the other super villain. You know what I mean? He's the smart one. He looks like a person that a lot of people I know don't like his personality. They feel like he's sort of smarmy or sort of just jerkish.
Right.
Bottom line is, though, listen, I think you could, if you're a conservative, he seems like the guy you can trust to do the things he's going to say he's going to do. If that matters to you. But if it's a personality contest, he's not going to win. That's for sure. And I am skeptical that he can win the presidency. Skeptical he can win here, even though I think he's better positioned than Rubio. But I'm certainly skeptical he would beat Hillary, who I think will be difficult to beat simply because of the structure of the electorate right now with Virginia, Ohio, and Florida.
Right. I know everybody's been going up against a tough mold, which is if you bring somebody who, like a Trump in, maybe that is the best chance. I'm not sure, even if you have to give it up. Marco Rubio, should he get out now, before?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know, because there's two things I'm thinking. One is if he stays in, they can split delegates all the way to the convention, maybe. Right. But he is losing, and people don't like him, and it doesn't seem like this is a kind of year for him. But so maybe he should stay until Florida. If he loses Florida, which seems like he might, he should probably get out, because then it doesn't matter anymore. And it's better, I think, for Republicans who are against Trump. It's better for Rubio to get out, because I think his fans are more likely to go to Cruz than Trump. Then if Cruz gets out, and he could lose a lot of people to Trump and bury Rubio. But tonight's extremely important, and we'll see what happens. I think Trump's going to be hard to stop. If it was anyone else but Trump, if his name was Rubio, we'd be talking about him as the presumptive nominee already. But because it's Trump, everyone's grasping at straws. We'll see what happens.
Kasich, one word.
A bore. I dislike him a lot. I think he's a fraud, and I don't, but his popularity is growing, so everything I dislike seems to be very popular with the American people.
So who are you voting for?
I don't know if I'm going to vote. Depends who wins. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I would never vote for Trump. I mean, I just wouldn't vote for him. And, I live in a place that's all liberal anyway. I'm not sure it would matter if I voted or not, but I've always lived in liberal places. So my vote essentially has never mattered that much, but I had a principle. I just wouldn't vote for a guy who I disagree with on almost everything.
Who should have run and didn't?
I don't know. I mean, I thought this would be a year for someone like Scott Walker, or sort of a governor who accomplished things and has a sort of one in a blue state, could sort of cross over a little bit and that sort of thing. But I can't think of anyone. I mean, everyone ran, didn't they? We had 13 people.
Yeah, like 17 in the beginning, I think it was.
Exactly. But I'm not sure. Do you know anyone who didn't run who should have?
It's funny. I don't. I thought Walker couldn't win because I think Walker came off as too little compassion, and I think people want compassion in whoever it is that they're going to pick these days. But I thought
Do you think Trump has compassion?
Yeah, I do. I do. Whether he has it literally, but he's smart enough to say, I don't want those people dying in the streets.
Right.
That was a smart statement. Yeah. So he has. And I that's what I think it is. And that's why I think Cruz is going to have, amongst the other reasons, a super duper tough time, because he just comes off as non-compassionate or uncompassionate. And I think people are hungry for something gentle in all of this insanity that we're all living right now, and fear. So whomever it was, it could have been, it should have been somebody who had a more of a sense of who they are and a more of a compassionate, not a George Bush compassionate, but a truly compassionate angle to who they are. And I think that's what the voters are speaking for. No matter how this turns out, David, what's the lesson conservatives need to learn? They can't seem to get elected anymore. Oh my gosh.
Well, they get elected. They win. They've had two wave elections in Congress.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about the top job. I'm talking about the top job.
Yeah, I mean, I think that needs to look at Washington fully and say, listen, it's not always about the presidency. I mean, I think if they keep winning locally, they have a lot of power in Washington. It means a lot of gridlock. People are frustrated with gridlock, and they start turning to people who they think can overcome it, like Trump. But in the end, the system's set up to say, listen, if you guys disagree, this is what's going to happen in Washington. We have separation of power, and we're not going to move forward if we can't come to some kind of consensus. What do they need to do? I think they need more talented people who can make a compelling message about conservatism, if that's the future. And they need to make promises they can keep and then keep them. And being aggressive is okay as long as you mean what you're doing and it's not just all show. People see through that kind of thing. So I think those are some of the things they need to. But obviously, this is a huge project, and they need better voices and a better infrastructure to get the word out for the policies they believe in, and maybe even come up with some policies to fill all that in with.
Yeah. The last word, come up with some policies.
I've been speaking with David Harsanyi, senior editor at The Federalist, nationally syndicated columnist and author. For more about David Harsanyi and to read his brilliance, visit the-federalist.com. And be sure to follow David on Twitter at David Harsanyi. You are listening to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. My guest today is the Federalist senior editor, David Harsanyi, and Newsweek's political director, Matthew Cooper. We'll be back in a minute. Stay with us. Hi, this is Halli Casser-Jayne. Are you enjoying the show? I hope so. And I hope that you'll tell your friends about it and help us grow our family. How can you help? That's easy. Share the link to the show with your friends or my show's player. And I would love it even more if you'd recommend they visit my website at hallicasserjayne.com. I look forward to seeing all of you there. Journalist and veteran White House correspondent Matthew Cooper is known for his in-depth reporting and analysis from Washington. Mr. Cooper has worked for some of America's most prestigious magazines, including Time, The New Republic, National Journal, and U.S. News and World Report. He wrote for Newsweek in the 1990s and rejoined the relaunched magazine in 2014 as political editor. Cooper also earned national attention during the CIA leak case when he was held in contempt of court and threatened with imprisonment for his refusal to name his sources and to testify before the grand jury regarding the Valerie Plame CIA leak investigation, a case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. He has appeared on 60 Minutes, Meet the Press, Hardball, The O'Reilly Factor, and This Week with George Stephanopoulos. Let's talk.
So, Mr. Matt.
Hi, Kelly.
What did you call me, Kelly? Did you say Kelly?
I said Halli.
I thought you said
Kelly. Didn't mean it to.
Hi, darling. Have you ever seen anything quite like this election? You've been doing this a long time.
Well,
this is
that
pretty
answers
wild.
itself, right?
Right?
I mean, it's crazy. It's interesting. It's unpredictable, bizarre. It's where we're at.
Fascinating. I have something I've been dying to talk to you about. And guys, Matt and I are friends. The time I can get him.
Let's talk for the next bit.
Yeah, the only time I can get to talk to him anymore is if I say, Matt, come on the show. But here it is. Here's what I want to talk to you.
I'm right here.
You're right here.
Yeah,
I know the Republicans are saying that Trump has taken the party hostage, and this is what I want to talk to you about. I want to talk about something that I haven't read before, and I want to hear what your thoughts are on it. Okay?
Sure.
So in the past, a man like Trump, who saw a problem with the system, would have orchestrated an independent run. I don't care how much money he had, Mr. Perot, it wouldn't have made a darn bit of difference, because the fact of the matter is you can't do that. So that independent thing doesn't happen, right? So here's what I think Trump did. I think Trump saw an opening, though, and it's my opinion that he hasn't actually implemented a hostile takeover of the Republican Party. His real goal, as maybe the party elders have finally figured out, too late maybe, wasn't to take the party hostage, but rather turn it into an independent party so many Americans wish they had to vote for in the first place. He couldn't do it with the Dems. Hillary was too, in. But he saw the opening on the right. I think his campaign that's got everybody so flummoxed is really the campaign of an independent in the Republican Party.
Well, I think there's a lot to that, Hallie. I mean, clearly this guy is got an ideology that's kind of different than the other Republicans. He doesn't want to touch entitlements. He's into raising taxes on hedge funds. He's very into tariffs on trade. He's diametrically opposed to the core of the party on a number of things. So I think it is more like an independent bid within a party rather than just trying to do the exotic and really unrealistic thing of launching a completely independent bid outside a party. Because as we've seen, that's very tough to do. It's very tough to get on the ballot, very expensive. You're better off doing what he's doing, kind of, grafting yourself onto a party than trying to start your own thing.
Yeah, and I think it's utterly fascinating when you think of it in terms of how genius was that. How dumb were they not to really get it, what he was doing, until it was too late? But listen, as we speak, polls are breaking right now, and he is way down, according to these polls that I'm looking at right now online. And I'm wondering, did all of this Romney stuff and this, Rubio stuff, you think it's been having an effect? I think he may have peaked. What you thinking? Maybe we shouldn't be talking about him at all. He's finished, over, kaput. What do you think?
I don't think we're there. I think he's still likely to win in Michigan. I mean, we're recording this on Tuesday.
Yeah,
the 8th.
right.
I think he's likely to win tonight in an important Midwestern state. I think he has a lot of prospects going forward, but it is true that party regulars are starting to take a second look at him, and he's tending to do better in places where independents can vote. So he's having some problems. I think it is inflicting some damage on him, but I think you would have to say he's still the favorite to be the nominee.
Here's the thing, though. I think he has been brilliant in all of this. Whether, we like the tactics that the guy is using or we don't like the tactics, he has been brilliant. But lately, I don't think he's being so brilliant. If he sees what's going on, he isn't responding as quickly as he used to. Do you pick up on maybe he's tired?
Well, I've written that. He's going to be 70 soon. At these debates, he tends to fly in at the last minute, leave right after the debate. He doesn't rest. He doesn't chill out for a day the way these other guys do. And I think you're seeing a little bit of fatigue, even though he's, extraordinarily energetic for a person of any age. No, I think he may have miscalculated with the discussions of his manhood. We may have crossed a line that's a little too puerile. I think that's he's had a gender gap before. My guess is that's widening. So, I don't think the last couple of weeks have been his most brilliant. But on the other hand, you got to beat him with somebody. So who's that going to be? Well, I don't think it's Rubio. I mean, the dog just ain't eating it, you know?
Yeah, no, that's the fact. Rough.
Keep putting in front of the dog and they're not biting.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's Rubio.
No.
I think Cruz is ultimately kind of a boutique candidate in terms of, evangelicals and maybe the oil belt. And I don't really see Cruz winning New Jersey and New York. And okay, so there's that. There's Kasich, who hasn't won anything. Okay, well, that's who's left.
So he wins by default at this point?
You got to beat him with somebody.
Right, but I'm saying he wins by default at this point, unless they take it to the convention and then all bets are off. I just talked to David Harsanyi about this. So, I mean, you got to listen to that part of the interview. It's fascinating to hear what he said. I want to go back to something you said last time you were on the show. We were talking about the fact that Trump is at about 35% at that time, I think we were.
Yeah.
And you brilliantly said to me, there are 17 people in here. That's not bad numbers. But he does seem to have reached the ceiling, right? I mean, 42% is kind of high.
Yeah, 42% with 4 people is pretty good. I mean, I don't know what a one-on-one is going to be like, but, he's a safe bet. If it was a one-on-one against Cruz, I don't know. Could be Trump.
I don't know.
One-on-one against Kasich? I don't know.
I was just mean. I was terribly mean when I was talking to David, and I said, Cruz just has a radio face. I mean, the guy could be singing, Zippity Doo Dah. He could be singing, Shirley's Temple songs. he just has that face and his delivery, and it just, and he's a pretty moderate guy when you really get down to it. He just doesn't come across. I mean, and you put, I don't know, where's this guy going to go in a general election? I mean, besides the fact that everybody in Congress hates him, but talk to me about that.
Well, I'm not totally sure I characterize him as moderate. I think,
well, for some,
I think his positions are pretty similar to every conservative Republican in the Senate, which means pretty much every Republican in the Senate. But he's not a governing conservative, right? He wants to. He's tried to blow up
that's his
place
problem.
a few times.
Yeah,
and that's what's propelled him to his fame. He wants to blow the place up when he doesn't get his way. Now you can either see that as incredibly principled or incredibly infantile, depending on how you look at it. I just don't think his emphasis on religious issues, I just don't see it playing as well in the Northeast or California or other places. He'd have to start winning.
I agree.
And I think that's why he's done well in these evangelical states, and not even that well in some of them. I don't know. I think it's a tough climb for him.
I agree. I want to go back to Trump for one other point that I want to make. And I think that Trump has run a pretty good campaign, all things considered. Okay, we just mentioned the fact that maybe talking about his manhood may have been an overstep.
I think that was a bit. Yeah.
But there's another place that I think that he has been allowed whomever, the media, conservatives, to define him as crazy, now as Hitler, which I think is such an overreach and inappropriate.
I agree with that.
And totally inappropriate,
I feel
by
like
the way.
Hitler's a little...
Right. I mean, so he's failed because guess what? That image is very much in play and has been for a while. That he's crackers a little bit. And I haven't heard anybody say, how did he let himself get defined like that? That's a failure on his part. Your thoughts?
Well, I agree with that. I don't think he's... Yeah, I mean, I think it's been in his interest thus far to encourage, an image of unapologetic strength. This is not a guy who's going to say, on second thought or backing down. I mean, a couple of times he's trimmed his positions on things, but in general, he's not trying to be the reflective, thoughtful brand in this marketing contest. And so I think that's mostly reform. But as you say, when he starts to be characterized as a fascist, which a lot of newspaper columnists are doing, which I think is ridiculous, I think that is hurting him a little.
And this is where I go back to what I said to you before. In the early parts of all of this, he would have responded so quickly that you wouldn't know what hit him, and he is letting it just be out there, and I don't hear him responding. I just hear him digging in his heels even more. I mean, maybe if he wanted to stop the Hitler stuff the other day, he could have put his hand down last night and not, raised it, which,
You mean asking everyone to swear fealty to vote for him? Well, it was an unfortunate choice, but on the other hand, maybe he knows what he's doing. Look, there are a lot of things about him that I think unless you're a total swooner for him, I think you got to find some things about him unsettling.
What's the most unsettling thing you've heard him say?
Oh, I think the Muslim ban, because it's so, it's impossible to achieve. There's no way to know what people's religion are. It's not stamped on their forehead. B, it's not what we're about. C, it's not good for law enforcement. We don't want to be, targeting old Indonesian women when we're looking for, Saudi jihadists. It's loopy. It's loopy. And I think it sort of plays to people's fears. So I would say that's the kind of thing that I think is not so good.
But as I said at a dinner party the other night, if he hadn't come in screaming about building a wall and throwing out the Muslims, nobody would have even listened to a word he had to say. It put him on the map. And that's what he needed to do because
I
he
totally
was
agree.
Right. He was a smart guy. He did, Trump. Yeah, he has the show, blah 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 blah, and what have you. But the fact of the matter is, in small town Idaho or whatever, I don't know that he was such a big name. He's an East Coast, West Coast kind of guy.
There's no question the wall put him on the map, and then when ISIS started beheading people, he pivoted to the Muslim thing, and he's gotten a lot out of that.
Okay. Enough about him. I want to go to Rubio again for a minute. And the reason
he's your local guy.
He's my local guy, and he ticked me off. Mr. Rubio, you ticked me off.
How did he do that, Halli?
He ticked me off because he stooped to a level
with the manhood and
that was unbecoming of him.
It was not one of his brighter.
Well, let me take it out a step further. What really annoyed me was when he was, and he's quick, I'll tell you that. That yoga thing was hilarious. That guy is quick, but he's pugilistic. You know, Trump can get away with a lot of what he says because it's with a wink. You know, if you know New Yorkers, as you and I both do, being from Jersey, you get that Christie kind of crustiness. You get that whatever Trump is putting out. That's just part of the thing. And it comes with a certain endearing quality to it. And when Rubio did it, it was just plain street gutter, I'm going to get you. But this is the part of it that I couldn't stand. I couldn't stand when he smiled at every joke he cracked, amused at his own brilliance. That was so with that smile. And that was what was so so turned me off. That was it for me. He was getting a kick out of it. This was sport for him.
Yeah, well, I think you could see his joy that he was finally getting some traction.
But it was ugly, and it isn't the way that he should have played it. And he's done a lot of things along the way that have annoyed me. Now the question becomes this. The question becomes, you know, the rumors yesterday that inside his team they were saying, get out now, buddy, before you blow it all and you lose by such numbers, you'll never have a political career. What's your take on that?
Well, I understand the logic of that, but I think he's got a good enough shot at winning that it's not.
You do?
It seems crazy to win the primary. I think, yeah, well, it's possible, right? You think it's impossible he wins Florida?
No, I don't think he'll win Florida. So,
well, I think the bet from him and Kasich is that they win their home states and suddenly they have hundreds of delegates.
Not going to happen.
People take a fresh look at them and they say, well, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying have their thinking.
Well, there you go.
They've denied it. You know, I could see the logic of him dropping out, but they've denied it hard. And
Kasich, I can see staying in because Kasich could be possibly, although after talking to David, maybe not possibly, but could be a vice presidential contender, possibly. You know, he could be the sanity on the ticket if it were Trump. So, you know, old establishment kind of guy. Who?
If Trump wants that, I'm not sure Trump would.
Oh, he said he did. He did. He said he would like. He was asked that question. He actually did say that he thought that he would want somebody more establishment than himself. He did say that. And I think that's true. And I don't know whether that's Kasich, but I think that's the only reason Kasich could be possibly staying in, right?
I think so. I mean, look, I think we're in uncharted territory, and I think these guys think as long as I've got the money and I can try to hold out to my home state, why not?
All right, let's turn to the Dems. You know, because I have told you how crazy I am with Hillary in this campaign of hers. Throw everybody out and start all over, I've said. And then every time I say that, she kind of makes things work again. I've never seen anybody who likes to go walk that precipice and like almost to the end, you know. She's going to the end of the boardwalk. She's jumping in the drink, and then she's saved by the faith.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think, you know, Bernie never got traction with blacks, and African Americans are a huge part of the primaries in many states, and he can't win those states. And we're seeing that. So, you know, he starts at a big disadvantage that way.
But back to Hillary.
Yeah.
If she can't run a decent campaign, will she be able to run the White House well? Am I being too hard on her?
I think, well, look, she got elected to the Senate in New York when nobody said she could. Then she got reelected in a landslide with basically no opposition. She ran in 2008 and got, you know, very close to the nomination. And this time she's going to, you know, have the nomination locked up pretty soon. So is she a public speaker you want to listen to for hours? I don't think that would be a hard person to find. But, you know, I think she's pretty good at what she does. And look, they got to get someone who can beat her. And, you know, I think Trump can beat her, but she could also, you know, she can also beat him.
I think it would be a heck of a contest if it was Trump and her, for sure. No question about it. Anybody else, it's a Hillary, it's yours, baby. This is it. You won.
I think certainly Cruz. I just
no. There's no contest. Although Cruz, I'll tell you, he's a clever politician and he plays dirty and he didn't care who, what, when, or how to play it.
No, he's good. He's good. But you know, you look at those swing states, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio. I think those are tough for Cruz.
We'll see. If Trump rose out of the ashes of an out-of-touch conservative GOP. What's the story of Bernie's rise?
Oh, I think it goes back to the 90s in a way. I think there's always been a part of the Democratic Party that didn't like the Clinton era. They didn't like the free trade agreements. They didn't like the welfare reform. They didn't like the hawkishness. There was just a lot they didn't like. And that has festered for a long time. And then the financial crisis kind of supercharged those sentiments about the banks and about inequality. And you're seeing that. You're seeing that in the popularity of Bernie and the popularity of Elizabeth Warren. And, there's a real left in the party that I think at its core never trusted and never really liked Bill Clinton. They just kind of went along with it.
Yeah, he was too far for the right in those days for where that party was then. There were an awful lot of Republicans who were saying that if Trump is their nominee, they're going to vote for Hillary. Brett Baer is on the record saying so. You buying it? Are you buying?
Who would vote for Hillary? I'm sorry.
The Republicans said that they would vote for Hillary. There were a lot of Republicans, the story breaking just a little while ago.
Well, let's see. I think the members of Congress are going to, no member of Congress broke with Barry Goldwater's vote for LBJ. And I don't think any member of Congress is going to vote for her. There can be Republican intellectuals and registered Republican businessmen who will vote for her. But I think ultimately the elected officials are pretty tribal.
But that came out of Brett Baer, by the way. That didn't just come on.
Yeah, no. I'm not saying it's not true.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's fascinating to me that he would say that.
I'm just saying when we get to the
general.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you and I are both Jersey kids, right?
Right.
Chris Christie.
That's our thing.
We just got to do one moment on Chris Christie. Did he do his political future in by backing Trump? Whoa.
I don't think he had a political future in New Jersey. He's
not in New Jersey.
Popular. There's no Senate seat open. He's not going to beat Menendez. Assuming Menendez survives, he's not going to win the seat. He's not going to beat Cory Booker. Okay, so I don't think he really had a political future in New Jersey. I think this.
Well, no, not in New Jersey, but what about on a national thing? Is he?
Yeah, I think he choked on that. I think the question was, do you sort of, endorse, one of the more establishment Republicans and try to beat their attorney general, or do you throw the long ball and go with Trump? And I don't think he had a great future either way.
Okay, so he took his best bet.
At least with Trump, he might be, he could be Justice Christie.
Well, he'll be the consigliere.
Well, he could definitely be consigliere. And he is a wartime consigliere.
Yeah, there's no question about it. So listen, darling, Hillary's email troubles, great journalist that you are. I'm sure you looked into all of this. You understand all of this. You get this. Is she going to be making orange the new black soon, or is this just really trumped up, or do they just not know, or is Obama going to bail her out of this? And when is this email thing over?
I will not pretend to be an expert on it. I have not done independent reporting.
But you're always smart.
But my guess is there's not a lot there. That there's not an indictment forthcoming. I think it's a problem in search of a crime. I don't think it reflects well on her that she chose to set up her email this way. But I don't think it's criminal from what I can tell. And so I think it is going to pass. Look, it could drag on all year. This House committee's been, going on longer than the Watergate committee.
It'll be drag if we get into the general.
Never underestimate the capacity of the Republicans to overreach.
Right. That's true, too. That's always a good thing to keep in mind. Now, here's something else I want to talk to you about. Remember when we talked last time, I said to you, and I actually wrote my own column about this, and I said, there are Trump whispers in my large coterie of friends. The whisper has been, or had been at that time, don't tell anybody, but I'm voting for Trump. Please don't tell anybody.
Right.
Okay. That was then. Let me tell you what the whisper, and it's not so much a whisper as it is, it's a scream right now. All of the people who I know who would have voted for Hillary are not voting for Hillary. And you know what's standing in the way of their voting for Hillary?
I don't know.
Israel.
Right. But what do they think of Trump having said, I'm going to be totally neutral?
They know that Trump has Jewish grandchildren. They know that Trump didn't mean that he was going to be completely neutral in terms of what his feelings are just in a negotiation. He would be, play the neutral party. They feel Hillary is, she made that kiss long ago with Mrs. Arafat. They're still not over that. And they just feel strongly that she is even, the creator of Obama's I hate Israel thing. She has not truly addressed this, and this is an issue because she could stand to lose South Florida because of this. For that matter, all of Florida for this. Because my friends up north and my friends in Central Florida who are on, Christian, just go, oh my God, they may not want to vote for Trump and cross over, but Hillary on Israel, she needs to do something about this. I mean, maybe she is going to continue Obama, but I don't know any of my friends who would want to vote for her because of that, even with Zabin, by the way, behind her.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Well, look, I think there's obviously been estrangement certainly between the Netanyahu government and Obama, and a lot of American Jews have been wary of Obama. But, that said, even Obama got a pretty big majority of Jewish votes. I can't believe she's going to get fewer than Obama.
And I disagree.
You know who? Well, you got to beat somebody with somebody.
You know who's screaming it the loudest? Women. That's what's got me completely.
You've lost Hadassah?
Yeah.
Why the ladies?
I have that part I haven't figured out, but those are the ones who are talking in my ear and saying, I don't care if she's a woman. Look at her on Israel. I'm hearing that so much I can't begin to tell you. It's like screaming at me every time I get into a conversation. That's what I get.
I know people.
And I'm not only getting it from Jewish Americans, Jews. I'm getting it from my Christian friends as well, who are just completely disgusted with Trump and said, where do I go? What do I do? And and Cruz. They all roll their eyes at Cruz, which has got me kind of confused, but they do. But they say about Hillary. So I'm wondering about this with Hillary. I think it's fascinating. I think she's got to talk about this.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's no question Obama
messed it up.
Yeah, I think he set the Israelis off in a big way with the Cairo speech and not going to visit Israel then, and the Iran deal and lots of other things that have really left at least the Netanyahu government very upset. That said, is she going to does someone really think she's going to cut off aid to Israel? Does somebody think she's really going to do a lot of pressure on them to?
No, but I think there's this move.
Cut a deal.
Well, on the signing agreement.
The peace process is stalled. There's no.
Well, she's going to try and bring it back, don't you think? I mean, what?
Well, she can try at some later date, and that's probably
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to guess about what her position is, but I would like her to make a very strong statement. I remember before when Obama, she came to Florida right before she made a speech about Israel. I think she really needs to address this, and she needs to do it, the minute that she gets the nod, because I think it's going to be a big issue in Florida for her. I really do.
You could be right, but even Obama won it twice, and I don't think
Obama's
you can see a senator from New York without knowing how to navigate these minefields.
Well, okay, you're defending her. I like it.
I'm not defending her. I don't see the collapse in Jewish support.
I do see it, and it is in the polls. It's not enormous on the Democratic side, but it is there. There's no question it's there.
I think there's no question Obama, left a lot of people anxious, which is
right.
Which is because as many Israel defenders have noted, like Jeff Goldberg, he was the first Jewish president.
Right. I want to see him her address this. Okay. We only got a couple of seconds. I still think they're playing this contest for all it's worth, my friends in the press. Okay, I'm going to read you something that I got an email about, okay, from one of our fans who said, okay, I think the media is officially delusional now. All this fuss and hyperbole about the so-called derail Trump movement exposes them as frauds or rating sluts or more, or both. Or both. As I look at the numbers, and numbers is what I do, I see almost zero chance of this happening. And yes, that excludes a contested convention too. It's almost pure folly. You agree?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't think Trump is a media-made creation, and I don't think he's going to be a media-destroyed creation. I think this all happened pretty organically. Most of my friends in the media were very dismissive of him when he first came out of the gate, and I think they've been embarrassed by that. And I think if he collapses, it's not their fault either. I think this is on a whole separate track.
Okay, that's what you have to say to that. Here's something else. The Republicans win on the white guy vote, the Dems on the black-brown vote, and I'm wondering what that says about race relations in this country. And in an addendum to that thought, not much about Bernie being Jewish or Hillary being a woman or Ted Cruz and Rubio being Hispanic. Have we come a long way, baby? Or baby, have we not?
Well, I'm of the we have come a long way. I think it's a big deal that doesn't get enough attention. I mean, the idea of Jewish candidates for president would have, been the central thing people were talking about a generation ago, or a woman, or Hispanic. So the fact that they're not talked about, I think, does mean a lot. And yes, do blacks and Latinos vote differently than white men? Yeah, but white single women are overwhelmingly Democratic. It's not like all white people vote for Republicans. Look, I mean, I think it's a longer discussion. I think our politics would have a more normal quality if the two parties were really competing for black votes. If you went back to a situation like in the early 60s, I'm not saying like segregation, I'm just talking about in terms of party competition, when blacks are about a third Republican and, there was a real contest for their votes. Truman desegregated the military in part because he wanted to win northern states and get more black votes. I think when you have a contest for black votes, it's a good thing. And unfortunately, I think Democrats are taking them for granted and Republicans aren't trying.
So, Matt.
Halli.
Put on your wizard cap.
Okay.
Is it Hillary versus Trump or Cruz or Romney, a contested GOP convention? Or maybe it's Bernie.
I'm going to say Hillary, Trump.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Halli.
I've been speaking with Matthew Cooper, political editor for Newsweek magazine. For his insightful reporting, visit Newsweek.com or visit him on Facebook at Matthew Cooper, and on Twitter, his handle is Matty Scoop. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a production of Resec LLC. Associate producer, Suzanne Probst. Music